All right. And she can kind of see me. But yeah, if you can speak up, and if there's a question, I might repeat the question so that she can hear what the question was.
Should we all say hi?
Everybody say hi.
Hi!
Oh, awesome. Say, we hope you feel better soon.
We hope you feel better soon.
All right. So, I left these out. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I just thought you guys might be interested. I like this oil lamp. This isn't ancient. It's not ancient. It's a replica. But this is what an oil lamp would have looked like in the time of Jesus.
Very
And
small.
You fill it with they came in different sizes. This just happens to be the size I have. But you fill it with olive oil, and except that my blasted.
Is that lighter from Jesus' time too?
It is not. You know what? It's not going to light because I need to trim the wick, so we're not going to take time on it. But I just filled it with. We were talking about olives in Athens, and so we had that. And also, this is a lovely selfie of me and my son at Delphi, at the Oracle,
Nice.
at Mount Parnassus.
Do you like black olives or green olives better?
Black. But not real wild about just eating them by themselves.
Maybe
Just,
I'm
I would rather, yes, pizza. Salads, tacos, that sort of thing. Okay,
I prefer
Let's-
black olives, but I
let's-
like tangy fruit.
cut right to the chase. Carl
Yeah.
got 109?
108. I did your letter pleases me greatly. With letter, I replaced it with one of 6, and then I have to double it because I have to me on some of them,
Okay, okay.
and then I have pleases greatly considered significantly. Gratifies greatly considerably significantly.
He's very mathematical.
Satisfies greatly considerably significantly.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, okay, awesome. Did anyone get more than 108? Oh my gosh, how many did you get?
111.
Oh my gosh.
Hang on, hang on.
Did anyone get more than 111?
Hang on.
Oh, no.
No. I'm just counting.
Okay.
Pleases me greatly because I do
No.
have some duplicates, but
Carl, we don't
you have
have
duplicates,
time,
you're less than
You're a
unfortunately.
good honorable mention, but he.
Honorable mention, Karsten, enjoy your shake or your malt. Okay,
Good job.
but guys, Carl, that is awesome.
It is.
That is awesome. To look at it mathematically, as you can have so many iterations if you change this word and then both these words. Okay, yes.
I didn't know if this was legal, but I did a super long, poetic one.
Well, lay it on us.
Okay. As I looked upon those brandish letters that you carefully birthed words with, and those words culminated into your grand sentences, and as those intricate sentences composed almost a miraculous letter, a tear dropped to the floor like an anchor to the depths of the sea. The wellspring of my heart was made cheerful.
Okay, everybody.
Correction on that.
Where's my gift card?
I did updated because I did this first page and I did not do it
Okay.
according to this, and I actually have 4 other ones to add to that 8.
Okay, but you know what? I will write down to bring Carl, because I'm not going to just rip a prize away from Karsten when he got all excited. Okay, so
One more. Yeah. It helps me.
Carl, prize. I don't promise it will be the same prize.
Okay.
Because you have to go through their drive-throughs, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta wait.
She
Okay.
brings in an empty cup.
It will be a desirable prize. I won't bring you broccoli.
Yeah.
Maybe you like broccoli.
I said,
The difference of what I thought we were supposed to do and what they did is very different.
Okay, what did you think we were supposed
We
to
were
do?
supposed to find the most grammatically correct one, not the most variations.
No, it was the most variations.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I am
most
very
number
sorry.
of grammatically correct
Yes,
variations.
I noted that they needed to be grammatically correct. You couldn't just do fragments, but it was the most iterations of it. I'm sorry. I am sorry. You will have to go get your own
Yeah.
shaker malt
Um,
through the drive-through. Now, I did not give you that assignment just to be random and fun, although hopefully it was a little bit fun and it seems a little bit random. Are you familiar with a man named Erasmus?
It can also be pronounced Erasmus.
Yes.
Okay.
oh yeah, I remember that.
Okay, of Rotterdam. And he was a brilliant man in the early 1500s. lived at the same time as Martin Luther, lived through the Reformation, but disagreed with Luther, did not feel like completely breaking the church into parts was good. And so Luther and Erasmus kind of got into a thing.
He wrote Bondage of the Will to Erasmus.
Yes, he did, because Erasmus had written something on the freedom of the will. And very good. So Erasmus not only engaged in theological debate, but he wrote many other things. He wrote a great little book called The Praise of Folly, and it's a encomium, which is a art of praising something elaborately. But he did it on folly, on being foolish, and it was sort of a sarcastic thing. He also put together the first Greek edition of the Greek New Testament that had been seen in the West in 1,500 years. You know, the East and the West, yeah, okay, I have a map. It's facing you, and this is the Mediterranean, and here's the East, and here's the West. And the eastern part of the empire, under Constantinople, you know, kept going after the Roman Empire fell. But eventually the people in the West forgot how to read Greek. So all the Greek stuff was just closed to them. And then in 1453, Constantinople fell to the Turks, and everybody ran away from the Turks as fast as they could, bringing their books with them, which were in Greek. And so people in the West were like, oh my goodness, I get to learn Greek now. I get to read things in Greek. And Erasmus was on the cutting edge of that. So he's a brilliant man. He also wrote a book about writing, because he was a good writer. And it's called, I have all sorts of stuff from the last class here.
I know we're reading a book this year called How to Read a Book.
Reading what?
How to Read a Book.
We're not reading it together, but I'm going to use ideas from it. But
Okay.
reading it would be highly recommended. He wrote a book called De Copia.
Is that Latin?
It is. Does anybody remember what copia means?
Oh no.
Supply or abundance?
Supply or abundance. Beautiful. In the plural, it means.
Troops and forces.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
We did this
Just
last
just
week.
testing you. Okay. So de copia means about abundance, about a supply of, in this case, words. Because you know, the more words you have at your command, the easier it is to write. Right? That's why little kids write stuff, and it's just like not very good. My youngest son, when he was just doing, you know, sounding out short vowel, 3-letter words, he wrote a story called A Rat, a Man, and a Plan, and it was very boring. He was very sweet, and I was proud of him.
How old was he when
I
he
don't know,
was
he was 5, you know, 5 or 6. He was, anyway.
He's writing stories when he's 5.
Well,
That's
he was
all of the class.
dictating, you know, but, well, no, he actually punted on the computer. He must have been older than that. Anyway, don't be impressed, it wasn't much of a story. The reason was his copia was very small. It was not a copia at all. It was parvus, okay? It was small. Parva copia. So Erasmus wrote a book for other people to learn to write well, talking about how to build up your writing skills. And he actually did this exercise in the book. He did a bunch of iterations of your letter pleased me greatly. He did 150. So not to make anybody feel bad. I actually printed them out for you.
I guess I should give my prize to him then.
So, no. You know what? A, he's dead and he wouldn't enjoy it. B, if he were alive, he doesn't.
He was lactose intolerant.
He was probably right. Here, I'm going to just give 2 of these to you guys, and then I'm going to send the other ones around.
The different
What
ones
would you
we
give us
missed.
if we got more than
Yeah.
150?
Mightily. The very first one just.
I don't know.
Mightily.
If we did it
That's a
like
tough
in
question.
Hey,
exact
miss it.
order, you'd be like, you found that on the internet, didn't you?
See, that's why I did not that I suspect any of you, but that's why I did not tell you where this exercise came from, because you can look it up on the internet and just find all 150.
He didn't just change one word at a time though. If he
Oh,
had
no.
just changed one word at a
This
time,
is
he
true.
probably would have gotten
This
like
is true.
1,000.
We're not going to take the time to read all of Erasmus's versions, but and if you do or don't, I'm not going to check up on you. But his point is, there are a lot of different ways to say something, even something that's really simple, right? I went to the store. simple things can be said in a simple way. They can be said, as Matthew showed us, in a very grandiose, lofty way, or somewhere in between. We can change our word order. We can emphasize something by putting it at the beginning of our sentence. We can emphasize at the end. So your letter pleased me greatly. That kind of emphasizes the letter. How I delighted in your letter. All right, now the emphasis is on me. My joy knew no bounds when I received your letter. Now you're emphasizing the happiness. You know, so placement isn't just, oh, it sounds different. It actually emphasizes something different. Or, and this is what we don't think about. I don't think about it either. It sounds prettier one way or another, right? It can sound pretty. We got introduced to iambic pentameter. Da-da, 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 da-da. Yes.
I have a cool guy because this is like really distracting me. Is that bottle like curving sideways?
Yeah,
It
well,
is.
it's
The base is not.
Oh, yes,
flat.
it's bent in. It's been warped.
Yeah, I was like
Whether
so
it's supposed to be-
confused. I was like, is this so?
I have a bottle just like
Does this
that.
make you feel better?
No.
I guess I'll see it bending that way.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no way that's gonna make you feel better. Sorry.
Set
Put
it
it
right
on
in
the
front of
floor.
him.
Yes.
Well, I can say this,
Go.
if, Hamilton would do this project, he would have done it better. Alexander Hamilton.
Probably so. Better than me as well. But back to the iambic pentameter. Your letter, let's do it. Your letter made me weep great tears of joy. There would be iambic
Good.
pentameter, right? Your letter
Except
made
that
me
was
weep
just
great
one.
tears of joy. Yes, that was just one. But that gives it a musical quality. So, anyway, as we write this year, this was just an introductory foray into the idea that when you want to say something, you have a lot of options, and the more we read, the more options we collect, you know? And that takes me to one other thing before I get into our sonnets. I have a book, and this is not an assignment. This is just one person who loves to read telling other people who may love to read something that you might want to do, all right? Because I waited a long time before I started mine. Back in the day, back in the time of the American Founding Fathers, back in the Middle Ages, it was very common for people to have what they referred to as a commonplace book. When we use the word commonplace today, we usually mean it's ordinary. Oh, that's commonplace, you know, I see that every day. But they meant actually, and you guys know this, remember the common topics from Lost Tools of Writing? We're going to talk about that more this year. Commonplace was a place to go for ideas for your writing, and basically just a collected place of ideas that are important to you. So here's what I did. I went to Barnes & Noble and I got a book that I thought was pretty. I got it because it's small and I can stick it in my purse. And whenever I read something, if I think it's pretty, if I think it's special, I write it down. And I write down where it was from. And you know what I'm making? This is my own personal book that's just for me. If a poem is particularly pretty, I copy it down. If I hear something that I want to remember, I copy it down. And I know it sounds like a lot of trouble, but I wish I could go back and start one of these when I was your age. Because the things I've read and forgotten are enormous, enormous in number. So I'm not telling you, this is not a command. This is just, like, you know what, if you would like to make a personal book of things that were important to you, there's a section in here that has a lot of writing about what happens after we die, everything we know about that, because I had a young friend who killed himself, unfortunately, on the day before his 22nd birthday. And he was very dear to me. He was like a son to me. And so, but when I read back to it, I think of him. And this is kind of bizarre. It was actually today is the anniversary, August 26th, and tomorrow would have been his birthday. But anyway, it wouldn't mean anything to anybody else. You know what I mean? But when I read that section, I thought, oh, that's when George died. I remember, you know? So anyway, if this appeals to you, it can be a spiral notebook. It doesn't have to be leather. It doesn't have to be pretty. I just liked this one because it was cool, and you know? Anyway, consider starting your own commonplace book so you can have a book, you know, when you're alone and you just want to reflect. It's all things that are meaningful to you. Anyway, that's my sales pitch for a commonplace book. Last week, I had you read some sonnets from Shakespeare. Usually when we read and do our great books, I'm not going to ask you things like, did you like it? Because we're not here necessarily to like the books, we're here to explore why they're great books. But poetry is sort of different. You know, it's like music. If you ask someone, have you ever really liked a song? And somebody says, why do you like that song?
Oh,
And-
that's his water bottle.
That's why it's red.
Somebody asks you why you like a song and you can't really explain. Is it sometimes hard to explain why you like a song?
Yeah.
There's just, it gives you a feeling. You ever get goosebumps when you listen? Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's a girl thing. I don't know. Certain parts of songs, just like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. But if you said, somebody said, why do you like that? I just do. It makes me feel something that I can't explain to you. Poetry can do that too, yes.
There's kind of a thing I've thought about that with people like music. I feel like it's different for everybody, but there's a certain type of genre for everybody that they like actually like, but everything else just sounds good to them. So like for me, like all that rap stuff, it sounds good sometimes, but like the music I like is like slower music that's kind of like more like emotional stuff.
Mhm.
It's weird because the way I act wouldn't make me seem like that, but like I enjoy like just slow piano beats sometimes.
Yes.
But I also enjoy like sometimes just like a beat head just whacking on the drum. Sometimes.
Sometimes,
But I just feel like it's different for everybody.
yeah. And it depends on our mood, doesn't it?
For me, it seems like I like a very specific genre of music, but like every once in a while, my favorite song will be a song that doesn't fit in that genre at all.
Yes.
It's like, I love this genre, but my favorite song doesn't happen to be in that genre. It's like,
Because
completely
people are,
different.
we're complicated, people are complicated, right? We have a lot of layers to us. So, in the case of poetry, I will ask you, did you like it? Did you like it? Or did you, after this first foray into sonnets, did you say, sonnets are not my thing? Or you have no opinion whatsoever?
Opposite for me. I really like them.
You really
actually.
like them?
I like them, but they're new.
They're new to you. You know, some things, have you ever heard of something being an acquired taste? You know, when you first eat, a lot of people feel coffee is that way. You know, a child drinks coffee black the first time and you, no. But then later on in life, people are guzzling down the coffee. Somehow they acquired a taste for it. I would like you to get those Shakespeare sonnets out, if you don't already have them out. And so the first one, I don't have a copy in front of me, so you're going to have to help me. Yes.
I didn't really like reading them at first because it was kind of strange. But then I took it and I like kind of wrote down the meaning of each of the lines, and then like I really liked the poem.
Excellent. Karsten made an excellent point about digging into the meaning. Is the first one the one that starts, that time of year thou mayst in me behold? Is that the first one?
I feel like that was the one that I screwed up the meaning so badly.
Because I don't have a copy. Is that the first line
I
of
think
the
that
first
was
one?
on the back page.
That was When in Disgrace with Fortune and Men's Eyes. Do some of you not have it with you?
Yeah,
It's
I don't.
downstairs.
Oh, it's
You
okay.
want to
It's
go
okay.
grab it, or-
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Mine's
Can I just
downstairs.
can I
See
just
if
borrow
able to
yours?
drive all the way home and back.
Karsten, do you mind? Thank you. No, it's fine. It's fine. I just wanted to. I wanted to know if people could tell me in your own words what it meant. I'll just read it again, because you hopefully you read it out loud every day this week. That was the goal. Hopefully, I know it. Okay. So I want to know I want you to interpret it. Karsten said he wrote down the meaning, which I see here.
I botched the first
No,
one.
it's okay. It's okay, because sometimes you have to dig in. Yeah, if it helps you. Yesterday, I taught the same class yesterday, and all my high schoolers are like kind of off base on the meaning of the first one. So, okay. That time of year thou mayest in me behold. Well, I guess I'm supposed to be over here. When yellow leaves or none or few do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. Okay, let's just stop there. What's he saying?
It's talking about autumn and the leaves coming off the trees and where late the birds did sing. The birds are moving away for the winter.
Okay, yeah, the branches. Why is he talking about that?
It's pretty.
This is pretty.
It means like the trees are dying.
It does. But I want to, there's two words in here you might not have seen. That time of year thou mayest in me behold. You see it in me. What would it mean to see that in me?
So he's making you think of like, don't try to think about it in somebody else's perspective. Like the first way you think about it, really think about it that way.
That's interesting. That's an interesting take.
Maybe he's older.
Maybe, just like the year is getting older in the fall, I'm getting older. Let's test it, because remember how it comes in blocks of 4? Let's see what the next 4 lines say. In me thou seest the twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. What does he see in me now?
Death.
Well, literally in the poem, what? The twilight of such day as after sunset fadeth in the west.
Dusk.
You see twilight. Okay, so let's recap. In me, you see the fall. In me, you see the sunset. Next 4. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. You see a fire, but what kind of fire is this?
Life.
Literally, what kind of fire? On the ashes of his youth doth lie. What's that fire look like? What's a campfire like when there's lots of ashes?
It's expired. It's like it's getting towards the end.
It's getting
You
towards
look
the
at
end.
the ashes, think, wow, that was, and now.
That was a great fire. Now it's sort of the
Changing
end.
fire.
We've eaten so many s'mores. We feel a little sick, you know, and we've drunk so much cocoa, and now it's just kind of, you know, it's glowing a little bit. So he says, in me you see the fall. In me you see the sunset. In me you see a dying fire. And now the last 2 lines. This, all of this, thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well, which thou must leave ere long. Why are they going to have to leave each other?
People are dead.
You're going to die. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. You see all of these things in me, but you love me even more because you know you won't have me very long. Does that make sense? I know. It gives, see, you're joking, it gives me kind of goosebumps. I love, see, now, would it be more interesting to just say, hey, you know, I'm getting old and I'm going to die soon, but I know that you appreciate me more? That's a boring way to say it. Okay, this is a beautiful way to say it.
You say
Oh
like
my
that,
goodness.
You sound like you're asking for them to be like, oh yeah, I love you, and I'm gonna miss you.
Yeah, yeah, it's like you're fishing for a compliment or something, yes.
Also, you're showing that you're willing to put in the effort to make it beautiful and use all those words.
Yes, yes. So, in your Lost Tools of Writing, your elocution elements, this is sort of a lot of metaphors, isn't it? I am the fall, I am the sunset, I am a dying fire, and you know it. Let's take a look at the second one. Not marble, nor the gilded monuments of princes shall outlive this powerful rhyme, but you shall shine more bright in these contents than unswept stone besmeared with sluttish time. When wasteful war shall statues overturn, and broils root out the work of masonry, nor Mars his sword, nor war's quick fire shall burn the living record of your memory. 'Gainst death and all oblivious enmity shall you pace forth. Your praise shall still find room even in the eyes of all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. So, till the judgment that yourself arise, you live in this and dwell in lovers' eyes. Can you summarize? What's the point? It's a little harder.
I mostly said like, that you're, like, the person he's talking to, that their memory is gonna be with him, like, forever.
Okay, why is that memory going to be with? Because he says till the judgment.
It's like the end time.
Yes.
So like the rapture, like in time.
Yes.
Judgment, and like in the beginning, he cared about him when he was still there, and he was gonna miss him even more when he was gone.
Okay.
So that'll stay with him.
So he mentions in this poem a lot of things that aren't going to last. He says marble and gilded monuments. Neither of those are going to live longer than this poem. He says war will overturn statues. Mars's sword, war, is going to wipe things out. But he says those won't burn the living record of your memory. And then he goes on, he says, to all posterity that wear this world out to the ending doom. You're going to last much longer than this. Let's listen to the last two lines again. So till the judgment that you yourself arise, you live in this. What is this?
The poem or the memory.
The poem. You live in this. And guess what? 450 years later, we're reading it.
And it's still a
Whoever this was addressed to, we're reading about him right now. Bunch of statues have gone down, bunch of stuff has gotten ruined, and boom, this guy is still living
It's crazy.
in. And now, it kind of says something about Shakespeare's idea of his worth, that he says his poem's going to live till Judgment Day, right? But you know what? It's lasted so far. So, does that make sense? So, the thing about poetry is often there's just a little keywords like in me, you see it. You will live in this. And it's like a key that unlocks the door, and you find the little words like, oh, I see what he's talking about. It's sort of like a good poem that's a little obscure. It can be a little like a mystery, like you're going to unlock the clue. But I don't really like poems that are so mysterious that there's no key. Some modern poetry, you have to have someone explain it because it doesn't make any sense at all. It's kind of random, like the Jackson Pollock painting. Next week, I am giving you 2 more poems and a longer thing to read. You don't need to read the longer thing every day. Your next poet is a man named John Donne. I'm just going to do this, just talk very briefly, because I really want to get to Macbeth, so we're not going to spend tons of time on this. And we're going to take a break at 11, right? 11:15. We started when?
We go to
10, 11, 10, okay. I'll try to give everybody a break here shortly. John Donne was part of a group of poets, and they're called the metaphysical poets. Metaphysics. Does anybody know what that word means? Metaphysics or metaphysical?
Isn't that the study
No.
where if you put a cat in a box and there was an electric switch and it had like a 50% chance of killing it, right before you look in the box, according to metaphysics, that cat is 50% alive and 50% dead?
Okay, yes. This would be a sort of metaphysical question. The idea, physical means the world we can see and touch, right? And meta means beyond that. So anything that's sort of not something that you could measure in a lab, things that are just sort of outside the realm of experience, except experience in our hearts and minds. And the reason they called these guys the metaphysical poets is because they were super into theology and deep questions of existence and all this stuff with these grand metaphors that they used. Yes?
So philosopher?
Philosophers study metaphysical things, definitely. John Donne, however, was an Anglican priest. He was born and raised Catholic. Later he converted to the Church of England and became an Anglican priest. And he lived for a long time. He lived under 3 kings. Queens. Queen Elizabeth was, when she was queen, he started writing poetry. And his first poetry was love poetry. He was Mr. Love. And, some of them are kind of like PG-13 love poetry. Not really are, but it was pretty out there. But he had these weird similes and metaphors. For example, the most famous one of these, it's either called a flea or to a flea. Flea like the bug, okay? Like your cat has fleas. And the whole point of this poem was, hey girl, this flea already bit me and it bit you and it mingled our blood already, so we're practically already one, so we can do whatever we want. Okay, whatever. Don't know if that line works.
Those are always she didn't vibe like that.
I'm guessing not. But that's the sort of poetry he wrote. And then, I don't know if it was age or he had an experience, but as he moved on and Queen Elizabeth had died and James I was King of England, he started writing a lot more about God, about theology, about religion. And the 2 sonnets I'm going to give you of his are religious themed, okay? Then he got a little older and James died and his son Charles took over and he was king. And he started writing a lot about death. Maybe because he was getting old and it was on his mind. So that's that's probably more than you need to know about John Donne. We're going to look at 2 sonnets, and then like I said, I have a longer, it's just this, and I just want you to read it once. He wrote a series of sort of essays called the Meditations, and I'd like you to read this one partly because there's parts of it that are super duper famous and get quoted over and over again, but people don't know where they're from.
Like, in Macbeth, there were so many quotes. I
Yes.
was reading through
Too-
Macbeth, I was like,
Too bad we're not
I know
reading Hamlet.
that.
Too bad we're not reading Hamlet, because then you get a bunch of them. I will give you a choice. Would you guys like me to read through the sonnets with you and kind of look at what they mean first, or would you like to spend the week sort of wrestling with them?
Wrestling with them.
I thought
Okay,
it would be your mouth.
it's a deal. The only thing you need to know is this reading, this meditation. He talks about. Could you take one and pass it down? He talks about a bell tolling, and what he means is in a village, when someone died or they were on the edge of death, they would toll the bell in the village church. Back then, we don't really have churches with bells anymore. You know, when I was a little girl, I went to a church, and it actually had a bell and a bell rope, and the pastor would lift me up. He'd lift up the various kids and give them a turn to grab the rope and let us ring the bell before church. It was a great thrill. But when he talks about the bell tolling, he means someone is dying or someone is dead, okay? And that's the church is tolling out to tell the whole village, pray.
That makes me think of Hunger Games.
Of what?
Of Hunger Games.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Because when somebody died.
Yes, they'd ring the bell. So yes, if that helps you to remember. But so when he starts out at the very beginning talking about the bell tolling, that's what he means. Okay, so yes, Kirsten.
On the note of the ringing the bells, the 180, I can't, would that be like a ministry? 180, it's an organization around here in the Quad Cities, and so we went on a missions trip and we were partnering with 180, and so we got to go up to their bell tower and they like have 7 bells up
Oh,
there.
wow.
And we're like, yes! So we were all swinging on the ropes and stuff.
Like the
So
Hunchback of
fun.
Notre Dame or something. Yeah, apparently there's an art called change ringing, and in some small English churches, they have multiple bells with different tones, and you need many people, and they ring them together, but it's not to play a song, it's like to make a harmony. I've never heard it. You can Google change ringing if you're into bells. But please read those, and we will talk about what they mean next week. Yes.
It's like what they do with the small little bells
Yes, like the handbell, like a handbell choir, something like that.
on larger scale.
Yes. Yes, there's a great murder mystery by Dorothy Sayers called The Nine Tailors, and it's about change ringing, and it's got dead bodies and murder, and it's very exciting.
Something we haven't heard of before.
Okay, so yes, on to Macbeth. I brought my big
Looks like everybody
Macbeth,
has a different copy of Macbeth.
which is fine.
Whoa.
This is my college complete works of Shakespeare that's been around the block a few times, but it's got great notes. I love it, and so this ages me. You can see how old my book is.
Mine
So-
Macbeth is digital.
sometimes, I don't know that this is a problem in this room, but sometimes people have trouble thinking of what to say when we're discussing something. And so I brought a little paper of what to talk about when you don't know what to talk about. So if I call on you and I say, tell me something about Macbeth, and then this gives you something to go for. Hang on to this so we can use this throughout the year.
Can I just say
I'm-
she's crazy every time?
Yeah, well, yeah, but let's dig deeper into the craziness. I'm sorry, Trish, I should bring you water.
Macbeth,
Oh, it's
Macbeth.
okay,
Remember that.
yeah, I can just
Okay.
go back, Lauren.
Go Macbeth.
Okay, so who wants to kick off our discussion of Macbeth? You can look on the paper. I would go through it, the plot, but can I trust that everyone had no problem following the plot of Macbeth? Does everybody understand what happened?
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of, was there an extra one?
Did you guys get?
Yeah, I gave them, yeah, okay, well, you can keep it. Oh, I bet it's Maggie's.
Oh,
You know what, I'm gonna email stuff to her. So when I send this, I'm just gonna send, so you can just keep that if you want to.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
Would you mind if I have those sonnets?
Oh, no, I am so sorry. I did not mean to keep that. What observations, okay, so Jacob, you're the one, did you say he was crazy? Or was it Matthew?
That was me.
That was you. He's crazy. What makes you say that Macbeth is crazy?
Was it just one of your random statements?
A little bit, yeah.
I think he was a worm.
Okay,
Lady Macbeth kind of pushed him to kill Duncan. He had reserves about it. He wanted to be king, but I don't think he wanted to kill Duncan at first, at least. But then once he became king, he kind of became bloodthirsty. But I guess I shouldn't have said he was a wimp. But I mean, he had reserves about it, and you could tell that he didn't want to. And he kind of let Lady Macbeth kind of push him to kill Duncan. Unless I read that wrong. Did I read
no,
that right?
she did, didn't she?
If I can expand on that, it's
Yes.
kind of like, you start out, the story, it seems like, when you first read, it's like, oh, Macbeth's the hero of the story, it originally seems. And he seems good, and then his wife's all like, oh, I have to kill people. And then it's like this decision, like, should I be bad, should I be good? He's like, I'll just do a little bit of bad, just a little bit. And then you see it just go completely downhill from the rest of the story, until he's at the end just going around killing people left and
Reminds me
right.
of Beowulf.
Yes.
No.
Well, no, him or someone else? Like, he doesn't just go around randomly.
Beowulf kills monsters, that's the good guy.
Yes, he's the hero.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just reminds me of Beowulf.
All right, well,
I don't know why.
Probably 'cause
there's,
it's so
there's,
difficult.
nobody got their arm ripped out of the sockets in this one,
No.
thankfully. I'm
Let's
sorry, Niall, what
discuss where to meet Macbeth, the King's Stone is Macbeth, because of his former title, which appeared before Macbeth, and prophesied.
Oh, yes, I was gonna ask, did you summarize, I'm gonna ask
Yes.
some of you for your summaries of scenes, but Niall wanted to say something.
Anyways, what I was gonna say is that, I think overall, he kinda liked the prophecy of, at the beginning of the
Mhm.
book, like, take into his life. He didn't wait to see if, this might happen on its own. He just started going out and making it happen.
Making it happen.
So he kinda got caught up in it, and he became,
If
a
it is
different
foretold,
person.
Just a
do
second.
this.
like, he became a different person, somebody he really wasn't in the beginning of the book. So that's why I think.
Yes, yes.
If this is foretold for me to be doing this, might as well take it into my own hands.
So, are you guys familiar, I was gonna look this up, but I'm pretty sure it's Elisha. Sometimes I get Elijah and Elisha. Sometimes I get some crossover. But, Elisha was going to anoint the new king of Syria, Hazael. And, he met Hazael, and he anointed him, and he started crying. The prophet started crying. And Hazael said, why are you crying? And he said, because I know the terrible things you're going to do to my people. And Hazael's like, dude, I'm not in a position to do anything terrible to your people. And the prophet says, God has shown me that you will be king. He goes back to Syria, guess what he does? The old king. Same story, I think he smothers him. But, the point is, you know, he knew what was gonna happen, and then you start to wonder, like, would you have done that if you hadn't had the prophecy or not?
Well, it's like a paradox.
Yes. Did you, is getting the prophecy part of the destiny? But here's what I wanna ask you, so, I'm sorry, Matthew or Jacob, I'm just, like, voices come from that direction, I can't remember who said what, but you said at the beginning he seems like the hero. Like, Macbeth is, he's putting down the rebels, he's Mr. Great on the battlefield, you know. King Duncan is heaping him with honors, you know. Now he's Thane of Cawdor, because Thane of Cawdor was a dirty, rotten scoundrel traitor. I give all his stuff to Macbeth. So he seems great, right? But when he meets the witches for the first time, and he hears the prophecy, and I am in, if you have your copy, I'm in Act 1, Scene 3, and I'm down around line 134, something like that. Macbeth is talking. And he'd been talking to Banquo, but then it says aside, which means like he's talking to himself. He's having a little conversation with himself. And he says, I don't know, did you find that? And Macbeth's talking around line 132,
Oh,
33.
130.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry. He says
Yeah.
to himself, this supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in a truth? I am the Thane of Cawdor. Like, if they're bad, why tell me the truth? If good, listen to this, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical. I've just been thinking about murder before, is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. He just let something slip to us. He's been thinking about this. Like, if someone walks up to you and says, hey, you're going to be king, like, do you instantly say, hey, I'm going to go kill the king? Wouldn't you think you'd have to think about it for a while? But he says, I've already got murderous thoughts in my mind. I'm already thinking about it, because you know what? I have been thinking about it. Like, and then we ask ourselves, how good a guy is Macbeth? Like, he's great on the battlefield, but has he already been plotting how to get ahead and what steps he might take to get ahead before hearing this?
Prophecy might have been like kind of confirming his like, yeah, I'm gonna go kill the king now.
But Gabriella told us before that he does go back on it. Like, he does definitely waver. He says to Lady Macbeth, we'll go no further in this business. Like, I'm not, and he starts to freak out and see ghostly daggers and, like, you know, going a little bonkers. I'm gonna give you guys a 5-minute break to go stretch your legs, get a drink, whatever, and we're gonna spend the last 45 minutes talking about Macbeth some more. Yes?
I was gonna kind of say about something about when you were talking about how they can kind of show you when they're doing wrong, or they were thinking about doing wrong.
Mhm.
It's like, so let's say, I'm just gonna use like Richard for reference. Let's say you have a group of people that work to fight crime or something. So I'm just gonna use Flash as my example because
Okay.
I'm familiar with that.
Sure.
So you have a group of people that they like stop the bad guys and stuff, and then this random person out of nowhere comes up, and you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. It always seems like they try too hard to gain their trust and to get on the right side. Because when somebody comes in to actually like, because they want to help and not be like charged, they're worried, like they're scared to do something wrong. But like when somebody's in there, like because they want to be in charge, they're putting themselves on the front every time. Like they show you, and sometimes it's hard to pick up on that. But there's like people that can can kind of like read that right off the bat.
And I want to talk about whether Duncan is a good judge of reading people. He says flat out at the beginning he's not. I guess we shouldn't just continue having a conversation.
Right.
But, you know, he says there's an art to seeing men's minds in their faces. Because the Thane of Cawdor, he says, I trusted this guy completely. I never would have thought that he would turn on me. And it's very interesting. I will say this and then I will stop talking while people aren't here. Duncan says, there's no art to find a man's construction in the face. He was a gentleman on whom I built an absolute trust. And then right after that, Macbeth and Banquo walk in. And right after that, Duncan says, oh, worthiest cousin. He just said, you know, apparently I'm not good at reading people by their face and their actions, because I really thought the Thane of Cawdor was a good guy. And then, oh, hey, Macbeth, you're the greatest. Like, buddy, you already said you're not good at this.
Foreshadowing.
Yes.
I am going to excuse myself for the rest of the
You
session.
are excused.
Thanks for letting me join in, and you all should at least stand up, because I think you were sort of wanting this little break. You have like 2 minutes.
Should we do jumping jacks?
So you should stretch.
Yeah.
I'm
it.
not,
But I do
by the
wanna
way.
say, I get what you're saying though about Beowulf. He became sort of high on killing.
And then when he took on the dragon at the end, of course 50 years has passed, but he doesn't want help. It's turned into a glory.
He's really gotten
That's what-
kind of
that's
like
what-
nutso. So when you said that, I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, you know, actually, I kind of get where you're coming from on that. Even though, I mean, they're not like
Yes.
parallel characters.
No.
But I kind of get your feeling there.
And it shows you also, you know, how the society changed between the two, because, you know, Beowulf is this peek into the turn of Christianity. Do you know what I mean? Into the Saxon world, where honor is still a big thing, but, you know, we have a different sense of honor here 1,000 years later. We don't, you don't win honor just with the sword, all right? There are other things involved in honor, like loyalty, like respect for those
And I
in
think
authority
that's
over
why.
you.
Because, you know, man is too susceptible to getting, you know, cocky and arrogant.
We are.
When we have too much power.
We are very susceptible.
All right, so when you're all done, come right down for lunch, yes?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, is everybody stretched sufficiently and done whatever they needed to do? Awesome. Okay.
I'm trying to find a document I created a couple of years ago for CC. It talked about Beowulf and a few other things.
Well, you can keep looking, but I'm gonna go ahead. While you guys were off, we talked a little bit about Duncan being a bad judge of character. That
I just got really cold.
he said that the Thane of Cawdor, he trusted him implicitly, and then the guy turned on him, and then Macbeth walks up and he says, "Oh, you're so worthy, yay raw for you." Like, oh, buddy, you don't get it. You don't see a person's real self. So let's take a couple of things we talked about. You said okay, go ahead.
Beowulf, a prideful hero, knight of Canterbury Tales, who leads thousands of innocent people to their death. Sir Gawain, who valued his own life more than someone's trust. Paradise Lost is a fictional tale of Genesis, so that doesn't really count. Christian for Pilgrim's Progress, an example of what a Christian should look like. Robinson Crusoe, a man who is insane, and I would say regain his sanity later during the book.
Okay, so is your point that Macbeth should be joined to this group of people that?
All characters in conclusion, no one fits to be called a hero in any one of these books.
Okay,
For
all right.
reasons or other reasons. Christian is just what a Christian should look like. He's not an actual character, so to speak.
You should add.
Yes, but okay. Well, we'll add. Although I don't know that any of us would argue that Macbeth should be considered a hero after reading this. I feel like none of us would have even tried to give him the label hero. But at the beginning.
Prideful hero fallen to
Perhaps.
prophecy.
Perhaps. Yeah, definitely fall into prophecy. Let's join the two things that we said, that he wavers, but perhaps he already had murder on the mind. So he sends a note to Lady Macbeth ahead and says that Duncan is coming to their house. Now, it also, you probably remember her little soliloquy. This is in scene 5. She's reading the letter, and then she says, Glamis thou art, he was already Thane of Glamis, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. What's the nearest way to be king? Kill the king. Okay, again, Lady Macbeth, instantly, she reads a letter, and all it says is, Duncan is coming, and I met these witches, and they say I'm going to be king someday. And her brain instantly goes to, oh yeah, let's kill him. What is wrong with these people? You know, apparently, do you think maybe there was conversation
They must be
between
only
these
talents.
two?
What act are you?
I'm in Act 1 still. In scene 5.
Later on, prophecy, beware of Macduff.
Yes, well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
She
another
goes on,
prophecy.
she says, Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily. You want to do everything the right way, Macbeth. Wouldst not play false, and yet would strongly win. You want it. You want it. You just don't want to do what you have to do to get it. 'Cause, what did you say he was? You're a wimp. You're a wimp. So he comes in, and let's talk about this wimpishness, all right? He comes in. Well, first of all, before he comes, Lady Macbeth, after the messenger comes in and says, Macbeth's on the way, she has this ugly, ugly speech. She says, Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts. Okay, she's calling for spirits. And I don't think they're good ones. That's a dangerous thing right there. You know, I'm just calling out to spirits in general. She says, unsex me here. Do you catch what she means by that? I'm a woman, but I wish I were a man. Not in a weird transgender sort of way. But because in her world, women don't run around, you know, killing people. All right? I'm the keeper of the house. But if I had a man's body, I already got the heart. I'll go kill him. She says, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to the toe, top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood. Stop up the access and passage to remorse. I don't want to feel any remorse. That no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my woman's breasts and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers. I don't want to be mom anymore. I want to be on the front lines and a guy. And now, you might argue her opinion of men is not very good. That's what she thinks it means to be a man. Okay, let me ask you this. What does Lady Macbeth think a man, a real man ought to be like? A killing machine. What's a real man do?
Doesn't let anything get in his way, has absolutely no remorse.
Protect his household.
Yes.
Tough.
He's tough, no remorse. If I want it, I will take it. And I don't care what's in my way. That's Lady Macbeth's idea of a man. I kind of worry about, I wonder how long she's been married to Macbeth.
A real man would have the courage not to kill him.
Okay, so this is really interesting because in scene 7, Macbeth gets home. And he's wavering. We won't say wimping out, but he's wavering. And he says, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination can trammel up the consequence, and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all. I wish I could just do it and it was over. But here upon this bank and shoal of time, we'd jump the life to come. I wish there was no judgment. I wish I could just do it and there's no consequences. I don't want there to be any consequences to my actions. Then it'd be great to do it.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but there are going to be consequences. So this is at the point at which he tells Lady Macbeth, it's off. I'm not going to do it. He gives a speech. He says, you know what? He's my king. He's my guest. You don't murder your kings. You don't murder your guests. Not going to do it. And Lady Macbeth says this. I just want to find. I'm not going to read the whole thing. She says, was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? From this time such I account thy love. Oh, it's the dirty card she's playing. You'd do it if you loved me. You love me. You won't kill him for me. And he answers this. I do all that may become a man, who dares do more is none. I dare do all that may become a man, who dares do more is none. You cross a line. I'll do everything that a real man should do. There's a problem. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth aren't like talking on the same wavelength. Their idea of man, what makes a man, isn't the same right now. Lady Macbeth's like, no, men take what they want, and they do whatever they want, and they don't worry, get all girly about the consequences. And he's like, no, a man honors his king, and a man honors his guest, and I'm staying within certain boundaries, and Lady Macbeth's like, no, break the boundaries. Yeah,
I
Jacob.
kind of want to expand on what you said, like a man, like he respects his king and stuff too. Like in a way, I think, coming to me since I'm a guy, I think even being more as a man and respecting a king would be like in Macbeth's shoes, him being more of a man, he would have the courage not to kill anybody. He would. There's another thing, like when you said, you won't kill him because you don't love him. I won't kill him because I love you.
Yes, exactly. They're not operating on the same sense of honor, are they? Macbeth and his wife. Yeah, Carl.
Lady Macbeth is power hungry.
She is power hungry. Definitely. Because she's going to get something out of this too, isn't she?
She's gonna be the queen.
She's going to be the queen. Oh, this isn't just, I love you so much, Macbeth, I want good things for
She
you.
ends up dying at the end.
Yeah, she does. So there's sort of this question all through Macbeth. What makes a man, and what happens to you when you cross that line? I want to note something. When he meets the witches, there's an interesting, strange detail about the witches. What do the witches look like? What do they have that's unusual?
Beards.
Beards. They're not. I kind of picture like the bearded lady at the circus or something. I don't know. I have no idea what these women have beards mean. But do you see, like, are they women or are they men? Are they good or are they bad? There's this blending already, and
Know what they could be? Warlocks.
it could be warlocks. Aren't warlocks always male though? Witches.
Warlocks are male witches.
Oh, okay. Says they're.
Because you have wizards.
They call them the weird sisters, though, so I don't know. Something. Did you notice how he refers to them as the weird sisters several times? Weird. And I just thought of telling you guys this. You probably know this from Beowulf, because somebody mentioned in Old English, they spell it kind of like this. Do you remember talking about that when you read Beowulf? Those of you who have. Weird. And then it got.
Mine doesn't spell it.
No, that's like an Old English, and then it turned into this, And you can always remember it's like this, you know, I before E except after C, but this one doesn't apply because weird is weird. I always remember weird is weird and so. So it used to mean fate. So the weird sisters are weird in the sense that they're unusual and odd. They're also weird in the sense that they're weaving fate. By the way, in Greek mythology, how many are there? The fates that we three. And there's 3 witches.
Copy much?
You know what? Good authors always copy. My daughter, when she was in college, she had a teacher that told her the job of a writer is to read and pillage. Read and pillage. Shakespeare was a fine pillager. He was really good at it. Okay, so back to the beards and these weird sisters. Yeah.
One weird sister plucked a hair, another messes it out, and the other wove it.
Yes.
And the last one cut it.
So these ladies are definitely weaving Macbeth's fate, aren't they? They seem to be. Like we asked at the beginning, would you do it if you hadn't heard the prophecy? This is a hard question.
That's
So,
the question of time travel.
yes.
If you go back in time to meet your former self, your matter is in the past, and if you don't return to the present, your matter will become exotic.
Yeah, you know, I think that all the movies and books, if there's no other moral to all of those, it's just don't time travel. It always ends up problematic. Just don't do it. If anyone offers you a time machine ride, just say no thank you. That's what we learn here.
Unless you travel back for farther enough in time just to talk to someone.
I don't know, maybe your conversation would be the world-changing conversation. I don't know, but back to Macbeth.
That's why most people who write time travel, they're like, try and avoid seeing yourself.
Try to avoid seeing
Because
yourself.
If they see themselves, they get into all
This
that,
is the lesson of Back to the
paradox
Future,
crap.
absolutely.
Or you take a time travel
I
and
don't want to
you
do
go back
that.
in time to a place where your time machine was never there to see if 2 balls.
That would work.
Okay, we're gonna the time travel is too big a philosophical issue for us when we only have half an hour left.
If your grandfather killed himself just out
Okay,
of
we're leaving the time travel. Okay, back to Lady Macbeth, who says that Macbeth isn't a real man. She says this horrible thing. Do you remember when she says, "I've been a mother, but I would bash my baby's brains out"? Do you remember this part?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
What the heck?
I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed the brains out. Had I so sworn as you have done to this. Man, that's pressure. If I promised you something, I'd do it, even if it was something horrible. So, for whatever reason, this persuades Macbeth. He overcomes that hurdle, that I will do all that becomes a man, but I'm not crossing the line. And he says to her this, "Bring forth men children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males." You're so much like a man, you should only have sons. If that's a compliment or not. But he's persuaded. So, he kills Duncan.
And then he instantly regrets it.
He instantly regrets it. Do you remember what he says? It's a famous episode. What does he say looking at his bloody hands? Do you remember? What does he think about the blood on his hands? I know I'm asking you a detail. That's not really very fair. He says, "Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand? No. This my hand will weather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red. The ocean won't wash my hands. My bloody hands will turn the ocean red." How does Lady Macbeth feel about it after it's done?
She's fine.
She was like, why don't you leave the knife in there? Come on.
Like, dude, have you never read a murder mystery? You have to leave if you're setting someone up for a murder, you have to leave the murder weapon there. Apparently Macbeth was a little slow. But it shows you his mental state, right? He's still not, like, he was just
And then
overwhelmed.
Lady Macbeth ends up regretting it eventually too, because
She
ends
does.
up sleepwalking, and she was like,
She does. But she comes in, and he's like, oh, the ocean will never wash my hands. And she says, a little water clears us of this deed. Just go rinse off.
Not true.
Nobody's going to know. You're fine.
just blame each
Yeah.
other two people.
So, we have at the beginning, so we have Lady Macbeth. I'm manly. I take whatever I want. I don't let anything stand in my way. And Macbeth's like, okay, you persuaded me to do this, but I don't know if we did the right thing. Do they stay that way? You mentioned it, Karsten. What happens to Lady Macbeth?
She ends up.
She comes back to, what does she do when she sleepwalks?
She's like, oh,
She
you know,
sees
wash my hands."
the blood on her. It's not actually there, but she sees
Yes,
blood
she
on
keeps
her.
washing her. This is a famous scene. Out, damn spot. She can't, and she wanders around and she talks about the murder, but she keeps washing her hands. She can't ever get them clean. At that point, how does Macbeth feel about the blood on his hands?
He's like,
Bring it on.
I'm the king now.
He's like, he was super confident
You
about the
kill-
prophecy. It's like, the witches said, so therefore, no man born of woman shall ever harm me until the forest
The
called?
forest, the Burnham Wood.
But Burnham Wood comes to the walls of the castle.
Yeah, I'm invincible. I don't have to worry about the whole crossing the line and not being a man anymore because I'm invincible. Let's talk about that that second prophecy, if you will, the visions. So, the first time they seek him out, right? They just greet him on the battlefield. He's coming back, and he didn't ask for it. But he goes back and he says, I'm finding them and I'm going to pump them for information. I'm going to get out of them everything they know, right? So he goes back. So I just want to mention, does any character in this play, especially early on, sense that there might be something not so good about the witches?
Wasn't it like Banquo?
Banquo, right after he sees them, the first thing he says,
Stop it.
after Macbeth is made Thane of Cawdor, Banquo says, what, can the devil speak true? And then later on he tells Macbeth that, if you think too hard about the prophecy, because I'm paraphrasing this, if you think too hard about the prophecy, it kind of makes you wonder what you might do, you need to just let it go. Don't think about it too much. Yes. So Macbeth is making a deliberate choice, right? I don't care whether they're evil. I'm seeking them out and getting all their help. So he gets to see three things. Okay, so let me see if we can.
Bloody child.
Okay, so the first thing he sees is a head. That's the very first thing he sees. An armed head, just a head. And he hears a voice saying, beware Macduff. Now, he sees a head. Okay, think about this. He sees a head, a disembodied head in armor. And the witch says to Macbeth, she says, speak, he knows thy thoughts. He knows thy thoughts. He's a disembodied head that knows your thoughts. Okay, what
That's
head?
because he's you.
What head knows your thoughts? Your own head. Your own head. And the voice says, beware Macduff. But Macbeth doesn't see any of this. It's like, okay, armed head, beware Macduff. Got it. I'm going to ignore what you showed me and just listen to the beware Macduff. Got it.
Look at those people on the head.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Okay,
feel
then
it.
he sees bloody child. No man of woman born can harm Macbeth. Great. I don't have anything to worry about. Dude, she's showing you an episode where a C-section, this bloody child, there might be a child not technically born. You're not looking, you're only looking at and hearing what you want to hear and see.
He doesn't realize that the worst thing he's gonna face is himself.
Then he sees a guy holding a branch. He sees a guy holding a branch. And he says, you won't fall till Burnham Wood comes to mighty Dunsinane. Great. Guys holding branches don't need to see. It's like, it's
Even
not
though
looking.
they end up holding branches to hide themselves
Yes.
when they're in the woods eventually.
He just,
It's
they
like-
give him hints. They give him hints and he doesn't take it. He just doesn't pick up on it. So, what's the death toll here? We got Duncan. Who else is in our death toll?
Banquo.
Banquo, and
I don't think
almost
I-
his son,
The
but
two servants.
the two servants.
Out of the entire story or just now?
Oh no, the entire story.
The queen.
Macduff's wife
Wife and
son's
child.
child. And I think it's implied that there were other children there that got killed as
Yeah.
well.
So pretty much all of
And all-
Macduff's family.
And the
Yes.
Except
servants
Macduff
and
himself.
animals at the manor.
Yes, and the servants and animals at the manor.
Lady Macduff.
Yes, and then of
Lady
course
Macbeth?
eventually Lady Macbeth.
Yeah, made Lady Macbeth. That's alright.
Yeah,
That's what I meant.
and Macbeth
Macbeth.
himself. It's a horrible death toll from that one
Oh.
decision.
Seaward?
Seward.
his
Oh
son.
yes, young
Yeah.
Seward. Yes, who's fighting against him.
Son of the
Um,
general of this squadron.
Because he's decided he's going to just be a man in the Lady Macbeth sense and take what he wants. But you know, that night before he said, if it could just be over when it's over. But he goes and Lady Macbeth's like, great, we're king and queen now. And he's like, oh, he says, we've scorched the snake, not killed it. It will, I'm paraphrasing, it will rejoin and revive its former tooth. You know, this whole, we're still in danger. You know, Duncan has kids. Malcolm and Donalbain. We gotta do something about them. Malcolm's off in England, raising an army. We're gonna have to deal with that. And then we gotta deal with our subjects. And does anybody suspect what really happened? Do you think?
I think Malcolm, when he gathered his army, he like got the Scottish forces to attack Macbeth, and so he ended up dying
Mm-hmm.
because of.
Because Malcolm knows he didn't do it, right? You know, they said, oh, it must have been his sons because they ran away. Why do you think they ran away?
To go get help.
Partly to go get help. Why else?
Because if he wanted Macbeth to become king, well, the next people in line would be Duncan's sons. So therefore, put two and two together, they were soon going to get killed.
Yeah. Their lives were, I mean, both of those things are true.
There was,
They need help, and their lives are in danger where they are.
there was another dystopian book that I read, and it was like, well, so this one dude is blackmailing somebody else, like, hey, your best friend is like way up high on the royalty chain, so when we take you guys over, guess who's gonna get killed first? So it's kind of like, come help me out.
Yes. So Malcolm and Donalbain definitely know they didn't do it. But Banquo, at the beginning of Act 3, he says this. He's just talking to himself. Thou hast it now, King Cawdor Glom's all, as the weird women promised. And I fear thou playedst most foully for it. Banquo's his buddy. And Banquo thinks he did it. So you know if his friend thinks he did it.
Then
By the time we get towards the end of the play, the whole nation of Scotland probably has an inkling of what happened here, and they've turned against him. Let me move on. Oh, I just went crazy underlining in my book. So he kills Banquo. He has Banquo killed by murders. Now he's moved up the chain. Now he's hiring assassins. Awesome. Well, he's a busy
So
man
his
now. He's the
friend-
king. He can't kill everybody himself. He's got to hire people. Plus, he doesn't want to be connected with it. What were you going to say, Carson?
just like, well, it sucks. My friend knows I did it, but I'm the king now, so.
Yeah.
you know.
Oh,
with
what's
your
his
head.
what's his motive though? I mean, he does maybe think that Banquo knows what really happened, but he has another motive. What's the motive, Gabriella?
That he's going to be the father of kings.
He is going to be the father of kings. That's what the witches said. And Macbeth is a devotee of the witches at this point, right? Like, oh, they tell me the truth all the time. Unfortunately, I don't really listen to half of what they show me, but never mind. And they said that Banquo's descendants are going to be king. But he tells Lady Macbeth, they've put a scepter in a fruitless grip. Fruitless. I have no children. We have no children. You know, there's an interesting thing, though. I was thinking about this. Lady Macbeth says, I know what it's like to have nursed a child. Where's the child?
I wonder if she's talking about him.
I don't know.
You're a big baby.
That's an interesting look at it. You know, I got to wondering, I watched a version of Macbeth this last weekend with Michael Fassbender, and it's kind of bloody, and I'm not going to recommend it to your parents, but they changed a lot of things, and but one of them is they show them at the beginning burying a child. Like Macbeth, no, but it died of sickness. No, I know there was no inkling that she. But they show them at the cemetery burying a child, and weirdly, the way they staged this movie, the witches had a child with them. Like there were 3 ladies and a little girl. I didn't care for it much, but I got to thinking about that. I thought they're burying a child. Oh, I wonder what happened in their past. That could be a whole. You could write a prequel to Macbeth. Maybe one of you should write it, like the story of Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, and their disappeared child. I don't know.
It's like what Anna did last year. We read one of our literature books, and then for her short story, she made
Oh, that's awesome.
different version from somebody else's point of view.
Mhm.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
No, that's always fun to do. So after he kills Banquo, has Banquo killed, what happens to him?
He starts seeing his ghost.
He starts seeing his ghost. Now, get your opinion on this. At what point do you think Macbeth sort of becomes
Paranoid.
unhinged, paranoid, whatever? Like, yeah.
When he starts seeing the ghost, I mean, Lady Macbeth is there in front of all the guests, and she's like, oh, it's implied that he visibly looks insane because she has to say to the guests, he gets this like every once in a while.
He has fits. Now, how would that make you feel? Okay, you're brand new king, you go to a dinner party with your brand new king, and his wife says, oh, he has fits of insanity. It's fine. This is just what he does. Oh man, our new king has fits of insanity. Yeah, up until that point, he seems, I don't know, but would we call it unhinged to order the murder of his friend and his friend's son? Or is that just nasty? That's just nasty, maybe. But at some point he does become unhinged and starts seeing, do we think, oh, this is a question I hadn't thought of. Do you guys think that there's something really there that only Macbeth can see? Or do you think it's just his imagination?
It's probably just his regret. Like him regretting all the things he did, and
Mhm.
finally just showing through.
Another possible reason why he might have killed Banquo is because he was one of his only sound friends, more morally straight,
Yeah.
and he would just go, okay, you killed Duncan, what are you gonna do with all this power? Are you gonna give it to the people, or are you gonna do what
Yeah.
with it?
Nobody who's following an evil path really wants a goody-goody best friend telling them they're not doing the right thing, in general, I think.
Bingo.
You know, which is kind of annoying.
Or I
So,
should say Banquo.
yes. So he sees this image, and he goes a little bonkers at the dinner party. And Lady Macbeth says this to him. She takes him aside, and the first thing she says to him is, "Are you a man?" She just can't let that go. "Are you a man? What is your problem?" And then he goes on his tirade, like, oh, we bury people and they come back out of their graves and I don't know. And then she says to him, what? Quite unmanned in folly? What? Dude, be a man. Get tough. Now, does Lady Macbeth know he's ordered Banquo to be killed at this point?
No.
So remember that scene where before where he says, you know, we don't, it's not over yet. We still have things to do. And she says, "What deed? What are you going to do?" And he
Oh,
says,
yeah.
"Be innocent. Be innocent of the deed."
And then now he doesn't even need her help to push him along to do bad stuff.
He
He's
doesn't.
just doing it by himself now.
He does it by himself. And so, you know, I should have brought my Bible with me, so I'm going to have to paraphrase the verse. But in one of the epistles, it says, and I think it's a Pauline one, if we are tempted when we are dragged away and enticed by our own desires.
Oh, that's in James.
And led off on a path. And so Macbeth starts out and he has the desire, right? I wish I could be king. What do we call, like when you want to better yourself and you want it more and more power, a better position? We have a word for that. He has lots of, I don't know how to fish. Greed, but not so much greed. Not so much I want stuff, but I want to be more respected. I want to be higher on the social ladder.
He's proud.
He's proud. I'm looking for, I'm just gonna say ambition. Ambition. He's very ambitious, right? Like he wants more and more and more and more. And then he gets king, and like, how do you get more than that? Well, you
Kill the people.
kill
who
everybody
expose
who
you.
might rise up against you, right?
Crush them beneath your heel.
Crush them beneath you. So he keeps,
Crush them beneath your heel.
yes.
Yes.
So I love that observation that he doesn't need her anymore. She pulled him along. He had the desire and he was enticed, and she pulled him along just enough, and it's like he just rolled on down the hill. And she's standing at the top of the hill now, washing her hands and saying, "I don't know what we've done." Right? It's
It's like Macbeth,
It-
Lady Macbeth just pushed Macbeth down a slippery slope.
yes. And then she didn't join him, although she did join him, didn't she? Because she's not going to end up well. And so he says, right after this episode where she says, "Are you a man?" Are you know? Then Lady Macbeth clears everyone out, and he says, "What man dare I dare?" He's saying this to Banquo's ghost. What man dare I dare? And then, but interestingly, the ghost leaves and he says, "Why so? Being gone, I am a man again."
He's like,
Like he's not using the term man the same way all the time. So how do you become
Equivocation.
equivocation, which is what the witches excel in, right? They give double meanings. They show you a head that knows your thoughts, but but don't tell you, this is you if you follow down that path. So what do you turn into if you're not a man anymore? And by this now I'm just saying human being. If you go beyond the realms of human, we have only two ways to go, right? What-
Insane.
Well, no, I mean, like, what? So this is humanity. Okay, if you go down, you become a beast, right? Like, beasts don't have remorse. Beasts don't have a moral code, do they? It's unfortunate when my cat eats a mouse because I really like mice. But it's not evil. It's just what they do, you know?
It's barbaric.
It's not anything. It's just their nature. But what is humanity supposed to? Okay, divinity. And of course, we're never going to be God. But through Jesus, through grace, through his cross, we become a new creature. We become not fallen humanity anymore, not in this life. But he pulls us up, right? He draws us up to be like him. We drag ourselves down, don't we, to become beastly. And Macbeth is just full out, he says he's a man. I think he's a beast now. Because isn't that what lions, like, I don't know a lot about lion social, structure, but, you have the male lion in charge of the pride, and he's gonna challenge any comers, right? He's gonna rip them to pieces if he can. This is what Macbeth has become. Yeah, Carl?
So can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Humanity, you guys would become wise counselors, then you become divinity, and then when you're human, humanity becomes barbaric, and then beastly.
So it's kind of got like the middle stage of like between.
You still have a sense of what's right, but you're doing what's wrong, and then you just become beastly if you continue down that path.
Are you guys familiar with all the Chronicles of Narnia?
Yes.
If I won't be like a spoiler if I'm, so, do you remember in the last battle, I think a bunch of the beasts have lost the ability to talk? They have fallen. Is that in the last?
One of the movies.
Oh, no, it's not in the
You're
movies.
talking about the last
The
chapter?
last battle,
Or
the last battle, the very last book.
The seventh
the
book.
silver trailer is
It's-
right
it's the
before the
book.
last battle.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a point, it's not important, but there's a point at which Narnia has degenerated and the talking beasts, many of them can't talk anymore. They've cause the beasts in Narnia are like humanity, but they've drugged themselves down. And Aslan, I believe in The Magician's Nephew, he tells them at the creation, that they can lose it. They have the possibility of losing what they've been given by their actions.
Pegasus was actually originally a donkey.
Really?
It was either a horse or a donkey that was brought into Narnia.
Oh, yes, yes,
Strawberry.
oh,
It
yes,
was
I
like
knew
a
that.
cat horse.
Okay,
The
so
cat
let's,
horse became the first Pegasus and could speak.
yes,
But though there,
Yes,
he does
I remember
have
that.
some memories of being fed lumps of sugar.
yes, but there were other animals that were created, but anyway, that was just a digression that I was thinking of. So Macduff leaves and his family is butchered in his absence. Where does Macduff go and why?
Doesn't he go to, goes to England to find help?
Yeah, he pretty much teams up with Duncan's son.
Duncan's son Malcolm, yes.
Also, isn't he like part of the English court now? Or
I don't know, it says like he's living there at the court and he's definitely getting help from King Edward. Interestingly, this is just an aside, but when he goes, he talks about King Edward. Well, I'm going to read it because I happen to be on this page. I'm in Act 4, Scene 3, and people are coming to the King of England to be healed. This is Edward the Confessor, he's called, because he was a particularly godly king. And Malcolm tells Macduff, a most miraculous work in this good king, which often, since my here remain in England, I have seen him do. He's healed people. How he solicits heaven himself best knows, but strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery. Medicine can help them. He cures, hanging a golden stamp about their necks, put on with holy prayers. With this strange virtue he hath a heavenly gift of prophecy, and sundry blessings hang about his throne, that speak him full of grace. All right, this is the King of England. The King of Scotland, on the other hand, is currently killing everyone in sight. Kind of gives you,
darn
that's a
Highlanders.
nice antithesis. Remember antithesis, Yes, those Highlanders and their blue faces. In this movie I told you about, they painted blue stripes on their face
Like,
before they went to battle.
Braveheart?
Yes.
Kinda like that.
So Malcolm tells Macduff, do you remember this part? He tells him a bunch of rot about himself. He says, oh, I'm so greedy. I'll be a terrible king. I'll just take everybody's stuff. Oh, I just can't stay away from the women. I'm going to take everybody's wives and their daughters. Why does he do that? Do you know why he told Macduff a bunch of lies about his character?
To see what Macduff would say, because he thought that he was a spy for Macbeth.
Trying to get compassion.
Yeah, I am on the run because somebody murdered the king, my father. Somebody shows up from Scotland and says, hey, want to be friends? Like, yeah, not everybody who says they want to be friends is a real friend. Let me kind of test you out, because maybe if I tell Macduff I'm a loser, I want to see how Macduff responds to that. It's like, oh, but we need you. And he says, well, you know, at the end he says, then there's no hope for Scotland. You were our last hope. And this convinces Malcolm, apparently. Okay, Macduff's the real deal. Macduff gets the news. Oh, in a heartbreaking moment. It's, every time I read that, it's just, and we see it acted, you know, in a movie or on a televised play, it's just like, oh, it's awful. But Malcolm tells him to do something. He says, dispute it like a man. In other words, fight against your feelings like a man. And he says, I shall do so, but I must also feel it as a man. All right. What is a man, what would be a manly thing to do in this society, do you think, if you find out your family has been butchered?
Go get a posse and kill whoever killed your
Okay.
family.
Bring,
That's awesome.
make the perpetrator
Pay.
responsible. All right, so in our, you know, like we don't do vigilante things in our country, like we would bring them before a court or whatever, but this was not a wrong thing. I mean, he'd broken all social pacts, you know, and this was appropriate, okay? So he says, yes, this is what a man does. A man goes and takes care of for justice. He doesn't kill for ambition, he kills for justice. But I must also feel it like a man. You know, Macbeth started out feeling it, right? He's like, oh, the ocean can't wash me clean, and now he's just, and he says this one thing, I'm not going to try to find it, but it's stunning. He says, from here on out, the firstlings of my heart will be the firstlings of my hand. And he means, the moment I have an idea, I'm just going to act on it without thinking. Because, you know, he thought it over and Macbeth got away. Got the family, but he waited too long and Macduff gave him the slip. It's like, no, I'm not even going to think about it. Does this seem like a good plan for life?
No.
Whatever the first thing that pops into your head, I'm just going to do it without thinking. This is the worst plan for life.
That's the thing that people don't realize. When like, with decisions, there's regret either way. If you think about it, or if you don't think about it. But the regret that people regret the most is when they don't think about it.
Yeah.
But they also have really big regret for stuff they did think about because they thought about it for so long. And then when they do that and they make the wrong decision in their eyes, they don't see a point of thinking about it anymore. Because they're like, if I thought about it for that long and it didn't go my way, what's the point of thinking about it and not just doing it right away?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I'm sure we've probably all been in that position where you overthought something, and maybe it's something not all that important sometimes, you know, that either choice might be a legitimate choice. I mean, neither one's immoral or a sin or anything, and you just don't know which one to pick, and then you're always like, oh, wonder what would have happened if I'd picked the other one.
Yesterday.
It's a bummer. I'm sorry.
It was that
I hate that.
Because I was thinking, should I get 2 footlongs or should I get 1?
Okay.
Yeah, people
And did you
in the
get
store
2
are
and then you had a
like,
stomachache later?
No, I just didn't eat half of the second
Should I
one.
kill
Oh, and then you're like, I wasted money.
Should
for
I
Yeah,
nothing.
kill
we have a
You can
store
save
over
it.
here.
You can save it.
Should I buy
Decisions.
1 foot long or 2?
Store
Should
over
I
here.
get
kill people
should
or
I
not?
get a
Should I
large
put
malt
one?
or a medium? Okay, I'm sorry, that's my issue.
It
That's,
was some good food though.
I get the large, but then I do
Subway is
regret it.
so good.
Normally have 3 footlongs.
So Macduff, so we have Macbeth over here, and he has no concept of what being a man is. Apparently at the beginning, a man is let your wife tell you what to do and not judge it for yourself, and then just go whole hog and do whatever you feel like doing. And we have Macduff who's like, you know what, I fight for justice, I fight for my family, but I also feel it deeply. I don't want to turn off my emotions so I can just be a man and go out there and be like the Terminator or something with no feelings. You know, I don't want to turn that part of me off. I don't want to turn into this. I want to still be a human being. But there's business I need to take care of. And so I love this line. Here at the very end, a couple of the lords of Scotland are talking about Macbeth, and they say this: those he commands move only in command, nothing in love. I'm going to say that again. Those he commands move only in command, nothing in love. What does he mean?
They don't feel. It means like they're doing it because they have to, not because they respect him enough to do it.
Yeah. They don't care about Macbeth. They have no respect for him as a person or his authority anymore because he's abused it. Those he commands move only in command. Because, you know, if you're working for a guy who has people whacked, maybe you should do what he says, you know, because you're kind of afraid. He's not, but as opposed to the King of England, his people were coming to him to be healed. They love him, you know. They don't love him. Yeah, Carl. Oh, you're stretching, okay. So, we have the showdown, but right before the showdown, Lady Macbeth, do they say how she dies?
I watched like a video that was essentially like a review on this. It really helped me comprehend everything. And the woman who was doing it said that it's implied like during like the actual the performance of this that she jumped off the side of the castle.
Mm. Yeah, they say, someone says, apparently by her own hand she died. And they don't really say how in the play. That's the freedom that people, that's what's cool to watch productions of Shakespeare plays, because they can do a lot of cool things. There's not a lot of stage direction, right? You know, Elizabethan drama on the stage, they didn't have a lot of scenery and sets and stuff like that. It was just kind of loose, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to say what we want.
It was just talking.
Yes. Gabriella, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that I thought that whenever it says she died by her own hand, I thought it meant that she went insane to the point where she died just by insane.
I don't know. Could be. What were you thinking, Jacob?
That's what I was gonna say, like when I think of people died at their own hand, is like they either did something to themselves to kill themselves,
Yes.
or they did something dumb that got themselves killed.
Okay. All right. So we don't know how. Maybe she had a complete mental breakdown. Because we know our minds and bodies are connected. You know how sometimes when you're upset, you physically feel bad. You know. So we don't know. But they go and report to Macbeth that she is dead. And here's his response. Keep in mind, she wanted him to be a man, and he didn't want to cross lines, but he crossed the lines, and he's not a man anymore. Here's how he responds to his wife's death. Let me read this.
Both Gulliver's Travels and that one other one, Robinson Crusoe,
Mm-hmm.
they were both like insane on their own different levels.
I would agree with that on Gulliver. I don't think Robinson Crusoe is the
Robinson
same.
Crusoe kept
Robinson
sailing the
Crusoe
sea
was-
for treasure and adventure. And
Oh,
getting
yeah.
shipwrecked.
You would think after you got shipwrecked a couple of times and had to escape from those pirates in North Africa that you just stay home for crying out loud. But okay. All right, let me read this. This is Macbeth's answer to your wife is dead. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusky death. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That's his synopsis of what is life. Life is nothing. It has no meaning whatsoever. Did his ambition get him anything in the end? Didn't. It didn't. And he's reduced to someone who just thinks there's no meaning in life. Again, animals kind of operate on that level, don't they? Like there's really no, there's just now. As far as we know, I mean, they do have memories, and you can train animals, and you know what I mean. But they're not thinking about the great metaphysical ideas, as far as we know. It's just now, and life. I don't know if you could get a cat to talk. I don't know that the meaning of life would be much more than food and naps. Sometimes I feel that way myself.
I
Yes,
personally would say
Matthew.
that what differentiates us between animals, or one of the things, is that an animal has never asked a question before, and an animal cannot comprehend that it's gonna die someday.
Yes. All right, you know what? I have botched it again because we're already 5 minutes over our time. I am sorry. I got interested in Macbeth. Here's what I would like you guys to do for me this week. I have never written anything with you guys before, and you guys have all had quite a bit of writing experience. And by the way, if you want to give me your iterations of your letter, please me greatly. I would greatly love to look at it. If you would like, you don't have to. Here's what I would like you to write for me. This is kind of going to be a weird assignment for you, okay? The purpose of this assignment is for me to look at what it's like when you write. All right, like what do you know? What have you done? When I give you an assignment, how would you organize it? So there's not going to be, oh, you didn't give me enough paragraphs, or oh, I don't like the way this is organized. Because I'm not giving you instructions on that. I want to see where you are. And so here's the topic I'd like you to write. And I feel like you could write, at least 3/4 of a page to a page on this. Who is most responsible for Macbeth's decision and fate? Is Macbeth responsible? Is Lady Macbeth responsible? Or are the witches responsible? Who has the greatest level of responsibility in your opinion? There's no right answer to this question. The only thing I ask is, as you've been trained to do in Lost Tools of Writing, back it up. You know what I mean? Don't just say, I think this, the end. And tell me why. But I'm not giving you any parameters and saying you have to have these elocution elements and everything, because I just want to meet you where you are and see what your writing is like.
Who
Yeah.
has what?
Who is most responsible for Macbeth's path? Himself, his wife, or the witches? Yes, Jacob.
I already have my answer, but the way I think about it, I don't know if I'll be able to get 3/4 or a
Oh,
page.
it's okay. I just want to see how you respond to an
Okay.
assignment like that, okay? That's why I hate to give me more than 2 sentences, you know what I mean? But I just want to see how you organize it, because I'd like to plan our writing for the future, sort of meeting you where you are and not covering a lot of ground that you've already covered, but just trying to move on, especially because you're at a couple of different levels, and this is new for you guys, to have like freshmen and juniors, but I want to meet you all, and I know that you guys have all had a lot of writing training and really good writing training, so I just want to know
The
what your
better
writing's like.
question to ask is, who is most responsible for Macbeth's path of folly?
Okay, yes, it is definitely a path of folly. So I gave you your John Donne poems. I would like you to write. I'd like you to put some effort into it, but again, this is just for me to see how you write. What does it look like when you write? And what have you done in the past? And when you're given an assignment, how do you choose to organize it? Okay, I'm going to say bye to Maggie.